Hi, I'm Don Patterson, and I got involved in this lawsuit against Monsanto back in 2010 when Dan Ravisher came to the University of Virginia Law School to give a talk about a gene patent that he'd overturned in federal district court in New York. And I went to hear the talk because I wanted to ask him what was the chances of being able to overturn the patents on seeds, because I have a strong attitude against the idea that seeds ought to be patented. And that conversation ended up involving me in a year of work putting together the plaintiffs in our lawsuit, which were originally 60 that filed the suit in March of 2011, and then we sent a letter to Monsanto and told them that if they would give us a binding covenant that they would not sue organic and non-transgenic farmers because of if they got contaminated with their transgenic seeds, then we would take the suit away. We would go away. We'd basically drop the suit. Well, they didn't agree. They refused. So in June of 2011, we filed again. We amended our complaint and filed again with 23 more plaintiffs involved in the suit, so a total of 83. Then we waited and waited, and Monsanto decided that they would they wanted to put in a motion to dismiss our suit on the basis that there was no real legitimate complaint that we had against them. And we waited some more. And finally, in December, the judge decided that she was going to hold oral arguments on that motion, and which we had requested. And so we had 60 of our plaintiffs who were there in the courtroom in New York in January, at the end of January 2012 this year, and we had our two attorneys, and they had 6 attorneys from their side. That wasn't as bad as it was when Percy Smizer was in court with them in Canada. He had 1 attorney, and they had 19. They basically, some seed had blown onto his farm off a truck from a neighbor who was driving his truck past, and his canvas tore off the truck, and seed blew onto his farm and contaminated his farm with that transgenic seed. And they took him to court for possessing their seed, their trait, their genes on his farm, and he had to fight them all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. He mortgaged his farm in order to fight them, and we didn't want that to happen anymore. That's why we went to court with them, and they have, over the years, they investigate about 500 cases of people who are contaminated in that way, or some of them saving seed that they maybe shouldn't be saving because they have a contract that they have to buy new seed every year. They can't save seed anymore if they're using their seed.
Monsanto?
Yes, yeah. So in any case, in February, the judge agreed with Monsanto and decided to dismiss our case. And we thought it was an atrocious decision because, number one, it didn't look properly at all the different precedents that bear upon our standing to bring a suit in a situation like this, number one. Number two, it completely ignored facts that were uncontested in our complaint that the judge by law is obligated to be examining. So that left us needing to appeal. And so in March of this year, we filed an appeal, goes to the appeals court of the federal district in Washington, D.C. And in July of this year, we filed our appeal motion laying out our arguments. In September now, this month, they filed their response. And now, about 4 months from now, we get to go and review the entire decision that the judge in New York made before the appeals court and see if this appeals court panel, 3 judges, agree with what she did or disagree. Now, my point of view on it is that we deserve a day in court. To me, this issue is like the Jim Crow laws. In other words, and we haven't, by this judge in New York, we haven't even been declared separate but equal. We aren't even getting what Homer Plessy got in 1892, which was an opportunity to go to court on the whole idea of Jim Crow laws. We've been put in a lesser status even than black folks in America were put back then. That's my contention. That's what I lay out to you as the issue here. Organic, non-transgenic farmers are not even to be given their day in court against this huge corporate, really, yes. And they are, over the years now, they've monopolized the seed industry in this country. They've acquired over 70 seed companies.
So like the sugar beets, like 99% of all sugar beets in America are GMO. I mean, that's another brassicas type of thing that goes over. So,
well, and sugar beets can contaminate table beets and chard and other things, and the seeds for all of these things are grown in the Willamette Valley in Oregon so that it's all right there and they can cross-contaminate each other and we wouldn't even know it. So that's where we are with that.
Also planted zucchini and squash. Was that?
Yeah.
There are a number, and it's kind of hard to find out if you're just a gardener which one of these varieties are GMOs or not.
Wow.
But a lot of that was done because there's a virus that they get that causes a mottling, and so they make them so that is hidden. That trait is hidden. So that's difficult to find. When we make up our seed list for organic agriculture, we have to do some real searching to find out which one of the zucchinis and yellow squash are GMO or not.
And there's another problem, which is that the organic standard is a process-based standard which allows best efforts to be sufficient. So people are not required to test for the contamination. So it's possible that the contamination can get into organic seeds and food without people knowing it. Now, if people know about it, there's a zero tolerance standard. They have to get rid of it. They can't put it on the market as organic. But nonetheless, we do know of situations where it has gotten into organic and natural food. There was a study by Cornucopia Institute in Wisconsin. They found a cereal at Whole Foods, a natural cereal, not an organic cereal, but a natural cereal that was 50% contaminated with GMO. So that's where we are.
Any other questions or comments?
What other countries have legislation in place that prohibits or limits the use of GMOs?
Almost all of the EU is that way. I think Japan, I think even China, Russia, are against it. You know.
Well, no, they allow it in China, and they allow it, but they label.
Yeah, you label it. There's a labeling, basically labeling.
50 nations have labeling. We're one of the ones that doesn't. But most of, 50 nations, that's a quarter of all the nations in the world have labeling.
In the places where they have labeling, they have low amounts of GMO products, even if they're allowed, because people don't want to buy them.
I've seen that Mexican corn in like the hills of Guatemala or Mexico and near Panama they're even finding traces of GMO there.
Well,
does Mexico or South America have?
The thing about that is because
Right.
people buy, it's illegal for them to sell GMO corn seed
in Mexico. However, it's not illegal for them to buy GMO feed corn or to take it as aid. And then peasants, here's this corn, I'll plant some of it. And then that's how the cross-contamination is happening.
You could probably be certain 100% that the grain aid that's sent overseas is going to be from these sources.
Yes, that's right. Not only that, but WikiLeaks has revealed that we know that the diplomats have been brought in to help to force other countries to accept, even when they don't want to accept, the transgenic crop. Basically, because not only do they want it, there's the lobbying and so forth, they want to help Monsanto, but they also sell this stuff to help balance the payments, balance our trade. So they figured that that's helpful that way, so they're trying to sell this thing to other countries on that basis. In Peru, they have a 10-year moratorium on it that voted unanimously with 2 abstentions from the Peruvian legislature. So that Peru and some other countries in Latin America are getting concerned about the issue, but you've got a huge contamination problem in Mexico, for example, already. Well, Canada is somewhat like the United States in that Monsanto is active in Canada. There many of the farmers there. That's why we've got a large group of Canadian plaintiffs involved in our lawsuit, because Canadian organic and non-transgenic people are concerned about the issue, but it's a huge issue there just because there's so much of it being grown and being allowed, being permitted. And yet, Canada has done some research that, like on this issue with women and the Bt toxin in their blood. And Bt toxin is a very bad toxin, especially the version of it that is now in the seeds, because the Bt toxin has always been used as a pesticide by organic farmers. It's a natural bacteria in the soil, and it's used very judiciously. Now they're ruining the ability to use that natural Bt by putting it in the gene of every plant. And it's a much more toxic issue now that they've converted it into a gene and put it in all the plants. So, and it's poisonous to human cells, and it's damaging the liver, it's damaging the kidneys, those kinds of things are happening. That's what we know from these studies in other countries, but these studies don't get made in this country.
It's 4 o'clock.
It's time.
It's 4 o'clock. Thank you so very much.
Thank you all very much.